My name is James Wright, and I'm here because of my novel Rhizome. It's an alternate world story that involves a huge force that's really a kind of super mind and super entity that has been monitoring the ecological problems on our world because they're leaking through these boundaries between the worlds. And so the forest mind on the other world is not happy with that, and they try and intervene. And they intervene through the use of a human. The human is quite willing to join the cause because they're very bitter and um, don't see a lot of value in the human race. Two things really, and two careers. When I was young, I worked in the woods mostly as a tree planter, and that was in the Pacific Northwest. And so I planted trees and logged and did other things for about 10 years. And I got a real up close look at not only the forest, but industrial forestry and all the kind of problems that go along with that. And so I became a partisan of the forest pretty early on. And then the second thing was after I destroyed my back from working in the woods, I looked for a different career, one that didn't require so much physical labor, and I ended up becoming a psychotherapist. But I did that career for 35 years, and I got really sensitized to the pain and suffering that are going on out there in the world, and feeling kind of angry about that at times. I mean, I no longer practice, and so since then I've tried to work with some of the residual feelings that I have and learnings. And as I bring up in the book, I think it's brings a serious evolutionary question about humanity. It's like, are we really fit for the long haul if we are doing this to our own kind? Rhizome started as nonfiction, and I started on this project writing it really about 10 or so years ago. And at that time, I was writing essays, and I wrote a couple of essays that contain a lot of the kind of some of the thematic meat of the whole rhizome concept. At some point, I sent them to a friend of mine who's a philosopher, and he read them and said, basically, don't quit your day job. Um, it's they were just I figured, I'm not a philosopher, and I don't write for academic publications. And why am I writing this stuff? I thought nobody would ever read these things. I said, it should really be fiction. One person read it and wrote to me and said, it's a love story. It's really a love story. And that really pleased me because it is a love story. It's supposed to be about redemption and a kind of triumph in a way. I was a total geek from the beginning, but I worked in the elementary school library as a volunteer, and the librarian took me under the wing, and I loved it there. And then I started seeing these science fiction books, and um, that was the 50s, and we were just starting to explore space. So I got into it. I started reading, and I've been reading. And when as a teenager, I started to write, and the first thing I started to write was science fiction. Sometime during the course of writing it, I ran across Ursula Le Guin's essay, The Carrier Bag Theory of Fiction, which it's in one of her essay collections. And it completely entranced me. And in it, she presents this idea, which is really an anthropology concept, the carrier bag notion that came out of feminist anthropologists who so much archaeology and anthropology were looking at the earliest tools as being weapons, being projectile points, knives, this sort of thing. And at some point, an anthropologist said, uh, no, it was probably actually a bag to carry stuff in. And the idea being that while men were hunting, women were gathering and berries, roots, whatever. And that that is an older strategy of human survival than hunting is. So Le Guin's essay, she says that she writes her novels like carrier bags, that they are bags that she carries with her, and she just puts things in them. It's like anything that looks like it might have value or fit, she'll stick it in there. So I gave myself permission in Rhizome to just uh, put stuff in, even if it was kind of tangential. And there are a fair number of tangents in that book. But if it somehow reflects basic themes or um, enhances the characters or whatever, then just put it in. It's part of the big bag.